Hey everyone, I hope you've had a great day so far and that you're doing well. For this video we'll be continuing through our retrospective unbagging of Imperium with issue 38, and Imperium is for the Warhammer 40,000 game system. Now, as for issue 38, at least for Australia, would have been released sometime around March 2023. So given we're 2026, basically 3 years ago, which is interesting because we've just had Combat Patrol start here, so interesting what happens after a 3-year period. Although in saying that, Combat Patrol should have started middle of last year. Should have. Anyway, issue 38, we have on the front the Space Wolves, who appear to be having a little bit of a kerfuffle with the Tyranids. So I suspect, what do we have? So Terminators, Wolfguard Battle Leader maybe, Dreadnought. I am aware of what that vehicle is, I just suddenly can't remember the name of it, but that's okay. But anyway, it's always nice to see some of this very nice artwork on the front of the magazine issue. As for the magazine, what are we getting? So we are going to get 2 paints and a texture tool, which, to be honest, I thought it was just some weird 3D printed device. But anyway, in terms of the actual issue, learn about the Space Wolves, some more information about the Necron dynasties, and the Fight and Charge Phase core rules, which would have been 9th edition at the time. Oh, we're going to... where? Okay, contents page. Some background information, injuries and grudges, missions and motivations, which I'm sure we'll see in a second. As for the story, Space Wolves, Age of the Imperium and the Necron dynasties. Basing your models, so that'll be one of the paints coming into play, and then the actual play side of things with the Necron command protocols, I suspect. Charge phase, the fight phase, and running the gauntlet, which will be most likely the mission. Also, some very cool logos there for the Necrons and the Space Wolves. So that is the remnants of the front page. Adeptus Mechanicus, Defeat and Redemption. So I'm literally skim reading, so I'm assuming, as always, this is just for some thematic information. And just looking at this particular page here, we do have these little random dice generator tables. Likewise, Ultramarines, missions and motivations. So once again, just to add some flair to your army with some parallel thematic information. And here we have those random dice generation tables. Doing the Librarian. What did we have? The Librarian, Primus, Lieutenant, and the Captain. Story time! Space Wolves, the Emperor's Executioners. So there's obviously some nice little story information here. Nice image of the Space Wolves here. I believe I once again know the units, but I don't remember the unit's name off the top of my head. Either way, nice artwork. The Great Wolf, so there's a blurb about the Great Wolf, who is currently Logan Grimner, who is the current chapter master of the Space Wolves. The Curse of the Wolfen, I remember when they first started coming out back in the day. Models are interesting these days, but we do have some information about that, so very, very cool to just have those little tidbits of info. The other story section of this issue is for Age of the Imperium, an era of superstition. So this particular image here is for the Templars. And then going through some of that. The rise of the Adepta Sororitas, which is always going to be an interesting one. I do remember bits and pieces of that. The Age of Redemption, so various ages of time. So we have, what do we have here? So we have the Age of Darkness, the Age of Apostasy, and then after the Age of Apostasy we have the Age of Redemption. So some very interesting bits of information there. Obviously the Sisters and the Ecclesiarchy is an interesting point, because where did some of that become rooted from? Anyway, moving along. Necrons, the Nephrit dynasty. So we're going through some of the various dynasties of the Necron. I'm sure there's a good way of describing. Empire is probably a good one. So we have some of that story information, a particular named lord / figure, and then some of the other dynasties as well. And a quick image of what the actual color scheme of those dynasties would be. Now, as for the how to paint, so we're looking into some of these texture paints. So there's the texture tool, which we'll have a look at the end, followed by how to actually use it, collecting the paint. So this will be the technical Astrogranite, how to apply, spreading it, what it looks like if it's been spread too much. Kind of just looks like paint more than anything else. Correct application and what it looks like when it's dried, so that will always be cool. I'm probably going to get some more of this basing medium down the track, but probably not the pot of this. Probably something a bit more value for money. What do we have here? Painting around miniatures. So what do we have? Use a starter brush to push the paint around. Oh, okay, so if you want to just push the paint around just to get rid of some of the gaps that may be there if you have attached the mini to the base already, and things like that. So that's always cool. And then, as always, there's a coming of Norn oil just to give it a bit more depth and texture. So what do we have here? So final gallery, using a Skitarii Ranger as an example, an Overlord, and a Intercessor Sergeant. So always a nice quick effect just to give that very textured feel to the base without too much trouble. Which is kind of why I actually want to get like a bigger pot worth of this textured medium, just so I can actually do that with various armies. Okay, Necron rules, command protocols. Now I'm not going to go through this mainly because we are on the cusp of 11th edition. And this is literally going to go in and out of my head. But it's nice that it's here. Tutorial, command aura. So it's interesting what type of rules were available during 9th edition. Charging over terrain, definitely not going over that one because I know there's some terrain changes for 11th. Flying when charging. And things like that. What else do we have? Advanced rules with Overwatch. Gosh, I remember the concept of Overwatch in the early days. The fight phase, which is always handy, which I'm once again not going to get into too much detail about, because I think once again that is also changing. So going through some of the actual, well, I don't want to say phases up, but the actual progressive steps, and then the mission, running the gauntlet, Necrons and the Space Marines. And you go, scout mission, break their lines. Mission briefing, what you need, and things like that. Okay, so what do we have coming up? So such a bit of a breakdown of the next 20 odd issues. So there will be a new battle mat which was included in this issue, so we'll see that. So basically more Necrons and more Imperial forces within the next 20 issues. So definitely probably a hint of the Necron army. Looks like we'll have some Outriders here from the Space Marines, the Sisters of Battle. So that is always going to be good. So the Adeptor Sororitas will come into play again. Well, not again, will actually come into play. And we will get some more Necron reinforcements along the way. And then, apparently, you can make even bigger mats using some of the other mats. So, what do we have here? Reverse side. The reverse side of your new battle mat is designed to sit alongside the battle mats included in issues 4 and 18. This will allow you to create a larger battlefield as shown in these images. So there you go. And I will admit the mats are on a decent paper stock, so they don't feel too flimsy. Now, pick up the remnants of this magazine. What do we have coming soon? Issue 39. So we knew of this one from the previous issue, so that'll be another Cataphron destroyer, so the second Cataphron destroyer. And there we go. In fact, I remember calling it out that we'll probably get a third one in the 40s, which we will. Right smack on issue 40, there will be this third Cataphron destroyer. So a little bit, well, I don't want to say boring per se. It was going to happen eventually, but issues 39 and 40 will just pretty much be the same model twice over. But if I understand it right, the Cataphron destroyers do come as a unit of squad of 3, unit of 3, either. But that's cool nonetheless. So that is that. So that was the preview of the next 2 issues. That was the walkthrough of issue 38. Now, what else was there? So I'm not going to open it in full, but we actually do have the battle mat. So there's going to be very much a section, like a, I was going to say like a ruined cityscape, I guess, or industrial setting. And I guess if I open up in a different direction, we should hopefully see the other side of the battle mat. So there are 2 sides of this battle mat, which is always very cool. And obviously now we know that with this particular side, you can make large sections of it using previous issues worth. So that is always a good thing. And as I said, it's not thick stock, so it will eventually start to have wear and tear. But it's definitely not paper thin, so it's always going to be very handy. Plus, to be honest, I can't imagine people are going to be roughhousing these too much. Well, you would think so. As for the other items, we have the texture tool here, which I just feel is just mass-produced by 3D printing. At least that's my take on it. It will have 2 different ends, so we'll have a very somewhat flexible, wider end here, and then a bit of a narrow tip here. Would I actively go out and buy an actual tool for texture application? Probably not, but I'm not going to argue with it if it's included in the magazines. And the last things that we've got in this particular issue, 2 quote-unquote paints. So we get the Yriel yellow layer paint, which still sounds very liquidy after all these years, and then this larger bottle of the technical Astrogranite. Now, this one feels a bit more solid, but I'd imagine with a vortex mixer and the fact that it is more of a texture paste, I can probably bring it back to life. Plus it has been sealed, so can't imagine too much has gone wrong. But in saying that, stranger things have happened. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the unbagging and retrospective look of Imperium issue 38. Next week will be issue 39. Will also be the end of the 4 magazine split. So next week's video of Imperium will just have that minute or 2 of the price comparison of the subscription versus the projected retail costs of the minis, etc. So that's always interesting to see. Anyway, leaving it there, so thank you very much for watching this video. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel, and I do appreciate it. Extra content can be found on my Instagram as well as the community tab, which I will admit both are not very Warhammer themed right now, but that's okay. Things happen. But I do want to try and inject some 40k into at least one of them in the future. With that being said, stay safe and take care, and I'll catch you all in next videos. Well, the next video, which could be Imperium 39, could be Combat Patrol, could be something else on the channel. Could be anything. Until the next time, see ya.